With Walmart's new fresh and frozen subscriptions, you can save time on your weekly grocery shopping.
Dad, you're supposed to be grocery shopping.
And miss the chance to embarrass you in front of your friends? I subscribe to snacks and wet napkins. You know how messy you are.
Dad!
Walmart. Subscribe to your weekly list.
This episode is brought to you by AutoTrader. Look around. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, if you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. New, used, electric, and one day, maybe even flying cars. See a car? Find it on AutoTrader. Visit autotrader.com to learn more.
Now, Two Pigeons and Coach Prime bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
These humans get the biggest college football games on DirecTV,
and we don't even get a satellite dish.
Enough squawking.
It's Coach Prime.
Bring it in. Sure, they could get all that college football without a dish, but you still got your passion, your drive, your resolve, your...
incredible career as a football icon?
No, that's me.
Stream the biggest college football games. No satellite dish. Visit DirecTV.com.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Arsenal and City draw in the big one, but is there any way to waiver in some of their talent? Luis Diaz stocks are rising as the Colombian makes it 6 returns in 5 games. And West Ham and Newcastle stink the place up. So what should you do with their assets? Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I'm Dom Crofts, I hope you are well, and we are now 5 game weeks into the Premier League season. The league table is starting to take shape, and there's every chance that your draft league is starting to take shape as well. Coming up, we're going to take a look at a few learnings from this week's matches. We're going to throw forward to game week 6, and we have the usual waiver recommendations that will hopefully improve your draft prospects. So let's get started with a look back at all the results from game week 5, and it all started with that lunchtime kickoff down in East London between West Ham United and Chelsea, and that one finished West Ham 0, Chelsea 3. Nico Jackson scoring twice, Cole Palmer also on target. Jackson's return also included an assist. He finished the game week on 16 points, and despite being openly mocked by some fantasy managers since he moved to the Premier League, he now has 4 goals in 5 games this season. Then in the 3 o'clocks, it ended Aston Villa 3, Wolves 1. Not for the first time this season, Wolves played well for large spells, but eventually got beaten. Cunha fired Gary O'Neill's side in front before goals from Ollie Watkins, John Duran again, and Ezri Konsa won the match for the home side. Fulham beat Newcastle 3-1 at Craven Cottage in what was a turgid performance from the Toon. Emil Smith-Rowe got his 3rd return in 5 games. Reece Nelson scored his 2nd goal for the club as well. Harvey Barnes made it 4 returns in his last 4 games for Eddie Howe's side. Leicester and Everton drew 1-1. Ndai got Everton's goal. Steffi Mavididi made it 2-2 for Leicester in what was probably his best performance of the season so far. And at Anfield, Liverpool battered Bournemouth again. It ended 3-0 with Luis Diaz scoring twice and Darwin Núñez starting and scoring for the home side. We'll be talking about him a little later. And Southampton and Ipswich shared the points at St Mary's, with Tyler Dibling scoring his first goal of the season and Sam Morsey equalising late on. Spurs beat Brentford to end a run of 2 games without a win. Big Dom Solanke scored his first goal for his new club. Brennan Johnson scored his 2nd goal since deciding to deactivate his social media after Spurs fans slated him, and Heung Min Son was in the points as well. Brian Mbeumo got Brentford's goal, and then in the early evening kickoff, it was Crystal Palace against Manchester United. Palace won this fixture 4-0 last season, but this time around it ended 0-0 with Marcus Rashford dropped just as he was seemingly rediscovering his goal-scoring form. Then on Sunday, it ended Brighton 2, Nottingham Forest 2 at the Amex. Chris Wood, Hinchelwood, Welbeck and Sosa on target in that one. And then in the big one at the Etihad, what a game. It ended Manchester City 2, Arsenal 2, Haaland scoring early on for the hosts, Calafiori equalising with an amazing goal. Gabriel heading Arsenal in front for his 2nd goal in as many league games. Trossard was then sent off, and City equalised with the very last kick of the game, thanks to a scrappy John Stones goal. So that is what has happened in Game Week 5, but who were the leading lights who shone brighter than a floodlight at a football match? And who were the dim dullards who darkened our doorstep with their disgusting displays? It's that time of the week again. It's time for winners and losers.
The FPL Draft Zone. Winners and losers.
First up, let's talk winners, and Luis Diaz is proving to be a brilliant draft asset this season. His 2 goals at the weekend, making it 5 goals for the season so far. He's also got an assist as well. He was ranked 18th in the FPL draft rankings at the start of the season, but he is currently outperforming every single midfielder in the game, including the likes of Jared Bowen, Anthony Gordon, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, and Phil Foden by some distance. Liverpool's strength in depth in those attacking areas means there is always a risk of rotation, but right now there is no way Arne Slot will swap him out. And with Wolves and Crystal Palace to come, there are likely to be more returns incoming for the Colombian. Liverpool's win over Bournemouth also saw Trent Alexander-Arnold and Kelleher hit double digits. Konate returned as well. James Maddison deserves a shout out as well this week. He's not been in great form for Spurs for a while now, but he was excellent against Brentford. He picked up a goal. He got an assist as well for his efforts, finishing the game week on 12 points. And Tyler Dibling got off the mark for Southampton in their draw with Ipswich, earning draft owners 11 points. We'll be touching on him a little bit later. As for losers, West Ham assets took one hell of a beating in their 3-0 home defeat to Chelsea. We'll be talking about Lopetegui's impact or lack of it in a bit, but given how much the Hammers have spent in the summer and how good their squad is on paper, their fans and draft managers who own the likes of Bowen, Kudus and Paqueta have every right to feel frustrated right now, and Newcastle assets outside of Harvey Barnes are also dropping in value by the day. They were useless against Fulham this weekend. The general consensus is they haven't played well all season, and their XGC in 5 games so far is 10.8, which is the 6th worst in the league. So we have some winners, well done to them. We have some losers, the absolute scuzzbuckets. But now it's time to celebrate the sublime, to salute the sensational, to marvel at the magnificent. It's time to crown our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
And this week's Hero of the Week is Nico Jackson, the Chelsea striker who has been laughed at, he has been mocked, he has been criticised ever since joining the Stamford Bridge club, but he now has more attacking returns than any other forward in the game outside of Erling Haaland, who, as we already know, is not human. Jackson has scored 4 goals in 5 games, he's got 2 assists in that time as well. He's picked up bonus points in 3 of his 5 matches. He is playing with confidence. His finishing seems to have gone up a level, and in what is a crowded front line at Chelsea, he and Cole Palmer seem the most nailed of all. Chelsea have 3 home games in their next 4, including one against leaky Newcastle United, and they actually look like a pretty decent side right now, despite all the doubts over their chances of having a successful season. And that is in large part thanks to the ruthlessness, yes, I said it, the ruthlessness of Nico Jackson. He may have looked pants for long spells last season. Chelsea may have been looking for a replacement striker all summer long, and the Senegalese hitman may have only scored 33 goals in his club career prior to this season. But something is different this year. Managers who drafted him this season have got themselves a bargain. Nicholas Jackson, we salute you. You are our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
So congratulations to Nico Jackson, our hero of the week. But sadly, the world we live in means that not everyone can be a hero. In fact, the sad truth is there are quite a few villains in this world, bad people doing bad things. But who did the baddest of bad things in the Premier League this weekend? Let's find out. It's time to reveal our supervillain of the week, and by doing so, play an overly long jingle.
Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain of the week. Supervillain
And there could only be one supervillain this week, and it is, of course, the Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag. Ten Hag has watched his side struggle for any sort of attacking cohesion for months now. He's been desperately searching for a way to unlock the Marcus Rashford who scored more than 30 goals just 2 seasons ago. And this week, it seemed like Rashford had finally rediscovered his form, scoring against Southampton and putting in a very good performance, bagging a brace against Barnsley in the Carabao Cup. So what does ETH do on Saturday night? He drops Rashford. He rotates him, depending on your point of view. It's a dropping or a rotation. And then he watches his side grind out a 0-0 draw against a Crystal Palace team that have been conceding goals for fun all season long. Having seemingly got Rashford back on side, he's also spoken out about him in the press, saying when your lifestyle is not right, you can't perform in the league, which is something maybe he should have said last season when he didn't perform, but saying it in a week when Rashford has scored 3 goals and seems to have rediscovered his confidence, harking back to the dark days of last season when he should have been focusing on this season, seems insane. And then dropping Rashford for good measure, it stinks of ropey management. It stinks of ropey man management, and it will be interesting to see how Rashford reacts when he is next given a league start. It's Spurs for United next, a team Rashford has his 3rd best goal-scoring record against. So let's see if Ten Hag's comments backfire spectacularly, or whether it fires Rashford up to go to another level. For now, though, it looks like a dumb move from a Dutchman, and that's why Erik ten Hag is our supervillain of the week. Cue the long jingle again.
Supervillain of the week, supervillain of the week, supervillain of the week, supervillain of the week. I hate his guts.
So in the blink of an eye, 5 game weeks are done and they are dusted. And those draft league tables are starting to take shape. Hopefully your team is where you want it to be in your league. And that is, of course, top. But if it's not, do not worry, because there is plenty of time to turn things around and plenty of fantasy points up for grabs starting in game week 6. Which kicks off on Saturday the 28th of September and runs for 3 days, with the final game taking place on Monday night at the Vitality Stadium between Bournemouth and Southampton. Let's take a look at all the fixtures, though, that will shape your fantasy future, and it all starts with a lunchtime kickoff in the northeast between Newcastle United and Manchester City. And this one is as close to a guarantee of goals as you're ever going to get. City won 3-2 at St James's Park last year, thanks to that last-minute goal from Oscar Bob. The season before, it finished 3-3. The season before that, it finished 4-0 to City. And the season before that, it finished 4-3 to City. So in 4 games, we've seen 22 goals, an average of 5.5 goals a game. Get in, this one could be spectacular. Bernardo Silva has 2 in his last 2 trips to Newcastle, by the way. Isak and Gordon got the goals for Eddie Howe's side in that 3-2 defeat last season. Then in the 3 o'clocks, it's Arsenal against Leicester at the Emirates. Arsenal have only won 2 of their last 4 home games against the Foxes, but they were both in their last 2 meetings in North London. Gabby Jesus got a double in their most recent win, 4-2, back in August 2022. It's a London derby at the G-Tech as Brentford take on West Ham. Since Brentford got promoted to the Premier League, they have won every single fixture they have played at home to West Ham, and Brian Mbeumo has 2 in his last 3 games against the Hammers. Chelsea take on Brighton at Stamford Bridge in what should be a closely contested game. Chelsea won 3-2 last season. Brighton won the season before, and in the 2 seasons before that, it ended in a draw. So history does not suggest that one of these teams is going to run away with it next weekend. And then at Goodison Park, it's Everton against Crystal Palace. Everton actually have an amazing record at home to Palace. They're unbeaten in their last 9. They've won 5 of them. So maybe, just maybe, this is Everton's time to shine. It's Forest against Fulham in the F-word derby at the City Ground. Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White were all scorers in Forest's 3-1 win in this fixture last season. And then in the early evening kickoff, it's Wolves taking on Liverpool. Liverpool have won 7 of their last 8 meetings at Molineux, including their most recent when they ran out 3-1 winners last season. Then on Sunday, it's Ipswich taking on Aston Villa at Portman Road. Ipswich have not beaten Villa at home in the league since, wait for it, 1984. And then wrapping up the weekend, it's Manchester United against Spurs. This one finished 2-2 last season with Rashford and Højlund among the goal scorers. The season before, the home side won 2-0 with Bruno Fernandes on target. Then on Monday night, it is the South Coast Derby. It's Bournemouth. It's Southampton. It's massive. Southampton have won the past 4 meetings between these sides without conceding a goal. The last time the Cherries beat the Saints at home was way back in 2016, 7 matches ago. So those are the fixtures that are coming up. But who are the players we should be targeting on this week's waivers? And who are the players we should be trying to strike a trade for? Well, we're going to discuss all that and more. But first, let's kick things off with Waiver Once.
The FPL Draft Zone, Waiver Once.
So as usual, we're going to go through potential waiver pickups in fixture order, and that means we're starting with Newcastle United against Manchester City this week with that lunchtime kickoff. Newcastle have been rubbish all season, but Kieran Trippier returned to the team on Saturday at the expense of Tino Livramento. He did not play well, but as I said last week, his upside is so high that if he is still on those waivers after being dropped for the first 4 game weeks, he is worth bringing in. The downside is that Newcastle look defensively shambolic and have conceded in every game bar 1 this season, so unless they sort that out, you are relying on his attacking returns, but even so, a solid pickup in my personal opinion. Harvey Barnes has been recommended a few times this season as well, and he's probably been picked up now, but if he hasn't, he should be wavered in if you're looking for goals from midfield. As for City, Savio started again against Arsenal, so he does appear to be first choice right now for City. He got an assist as well, so if he is still available, he might be worth taking a punt on. And Gundogan started again as well. De Bruyne was obviously missing through injury, but that is now 3 starts in a row in all competitions for the German. And like Trippier, his upside is massive if he can get into the team on a regular basis.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
Which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
With Walmart's new fresh and frozen subscriptions, you can save time on your weekly grocery shopping.
Dad, you're supposed to be grocery shopping.
And miss the chance to embarrass you in front of your friends? I subscribe to snacks and wet napkins. You know how messy you are.
Dad!
Walmart. Subscribe to your weekly list.
It's Arsenal against Leicester at the Emirates. Ben White was absent for the Gunners against Manchester City with Timber at right back. He played well. That also meant a start for Calafiori on the left. He was excellent in the Euros for Italy. He's looked good in his time on the pitch for Arsenal as well, and he scored a great goal against Manchester City. So if he is free, he should absolutely be on your radar. Yes, he is a minute's risk. Yes, there will be rotation in that Arsenal backline, but Arsenal's defence is so strong that he is worth that risk. I think this game is also one where Arsenal are likely to rotate. They've played a lot of football recently and had a lot of massive games, so it wouldn't surprise me if Gabby Jesus and Raheem Sterling got starts in this one. So if either of them are available and you want to take a chance on a short-term 1-week punt on some Arsenal assets, I would definitely take the plunge for them. As for Leicester, Steffi Mavididi was excellent last season. He lost his starting place at the start of this season under new manager Steve Cooper, but it's now 2 starts in a row and 2 goals in a row for him, and there is every chance he will continue to shine for the Foxes. Obviously, Arsenal away is not a great fixture, but after that, there's a good run of games. They've got Bournemouth and Forest at home. They've got Southampton and Ipswich away in their next 4, so he's very much worth a waiver with those games in mind, and just dump him on your bench for this week's fixture. He's also, incidentally, got the highest XGI of anyone in the Leicester team this season by some distance, and that is despite only starting 2 games. So he is high on my list to waiver in this week with a view to game week 7 and beyond. Brentford take on West Ham. Brentford went with a front two of Mbeumo and Carvalho in their defeat to Spurs, but that is a tactic they've done against Liverpool and City already this season, going to a back five. At home, it is normally a different story. They normally play with a front three, so I would expect Kevin Schade to return for this one, and if he's not been picked up, I wouldn't be too worried about his minutes. He will be back this weekend. Similarly with Carvalho, any route into that Brentford front line would be a good move on the waivers. And West Ham are a mess defensively. They have the second worst XGC in the league, behind only Ipswich Town. So if you have any Brentford coverage, I would be very confident of a return. As for West Ham, they are a hard avoid right now until they show even a glimpse of some team cohesion, a tactical plan, anything really. But maybe if you are lacking a striker, Danny Ings might be worth a punt. He didn't start on Saturday, but West Ham fans have been calling for him to get a start. And maybe, given the result against Chelsea, this will be the game where he gets his chance to start from the start. Chelsea take on Brighton at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea actually look like they might be quite good this season, which was not something I thought would happen, if I'm honest. Their attacking options are still huge, and there continues to be a lot of rotation within games, but Jadon Sancho now has 2 assists in as many matches. He's not yet managed more than an hour for the club in either game, so he would be a big X minutes risk, but he has surely done enough to start this one. And I wonder if Neto might be preferred to Madueke on the right in this game, assuming that Estupiñán starts again for Brighton at left back. Estupiñán was playing so high up against Nottingham Forest, he was leaving all sorts of space in behind, and Neto's pace could easily exploit that. As for Brighton, Estupiñán's return means he is a defensive asset with a huge upside. He was playing very high up against Forest. He was also on set pieces as well, and even though he didn't play that well, if he is going to end up being a regular starter for the Seagulls, he could turn out to be huge in draft. Simon Adingra started against Forest ahead of Minte, which is what we said might happen last week. There is going to be a lot of winger rotation at Brighton now, and unless you're happy to roll the dice on that, it might be worth avoiding all of them. However, if you are light in the forward options and you do have faith in Evan Ferguson, he got more minutes again off the bench on Sunday as he works his way back up to full fitness, and I have a feeling he could easily end up first choice for Brighton alongside João Pedro in the next month or so. So he might be worth getting in now in the hope he realises his potential. Everton are still without a win this season, but I do think it will come sooner rather than later. And given their run of fixtures, I actually think Everton defensive assets might not be a bad way to go. That might sound insane, given they have conceded 3 or more goals in every game so far this season, bar one. But they have done that without Jared Branthwaite, who is expected to return next week. And Everton's record with him in the side is far better than without him, both in terms of goals conceded, XG conceded, clean sheets, and expected clean sheets. So he could be a game changer for Everton. There is no guarantee he will start this one, having been out for so long. But after that, it's Newcastle at home, who we've already seen do not travel well. Then it's Ipswich away, Fulham at home, and Southampton away. So lots of potential for points and quite a lot of potential for clean sheets. Also, if you're looking further up the field, we mentioned him last week, I think it was, but another word on Iliman Ndiaye, who has started the last 3 games in a row now, and he got off the mark as well against Leicester this weekend. As for Palace, nothing we haven't already mentioned really. Their defence continues to underwhelm despite high hopes pre-season, and after this they have Spurs, Forest and Liverpool in their next 3, which is disgusting. Forest are at home to Fulham in game week 6. They will be without Morgan Gibbs-White, who was sent off at Brighton. That should mean a guaranteed start for James Ward-Prowse, who could be worth a 1-week punt given the threat he produces from set pieces. Jota Silva got an assist in the draw with Brighton and looked really threatening after coming on. We've bigged him up before, and it is now looking more and more likely that more minutes will be incoming for the Portuguese player. As for Fulham, a word on Adama Traore, who I think a lot of us have written off based on his entire career so far, but he actually looks really, really good at the moment. He's clearly playing with a lot of confidence. He seems to have the manager's trust. He got an assist against Newcastle, and he could easily have returned more in that game as well. It looks like he's got an end product to his game as well at the moment, which is astonishing. He's got a goal and 2 assists in his opening 5 games, and with the likes of Smith Rowe and Iwobi playing really well, teams coming up against Fulham have got a lot to think about, and that could work in Traore's favour. So it's time to stop thinking of him as the player we all knew and start thinking of him as a really good midfield option who is delivering week in, week out, and therefore could be a solid addition to your draft team. Jimenez seems to have the shirt over Muniz as well right now, and it was an excellent finish from him in that win over Newcastle, so he'll be in the lineup again. And while he's fit, he is a good striking option, but you do have to keep in mind that last season he only managed just under 1,400 minutes all season. So if you're in a larger league and you have a third striker who is just nowhere near getting minutes for your side, it might be worth trading them out for Muniz if he has been put on the waivers, benching him and just waiting for Jimenez to drop out again, because I think it will happen. He is going to pick up a knock that will probably keep him out for a significant amount of time. Wolves take on Liverpool at Molineux. Wolves have done okay in most games this season, but have not had the rewards that perhaps they deserved. And I don't think they're going to get anything out of this one, if I'm honest. I wouldn't really look at any of their assets for this weekend. Liverpool, on the other hand, well, their assets will probably all be taken, but we did say 2 weeks ago that it was only a matter of time before Darwin earned a start and urged you to keep the faith, so hopefully you listened and held. But if you were a manager who picked him up after a rival manager's mistake of dropping him, congratulations to you. Kwanzaa is worth another mention as well as a worthwhile squad option. Konate is playing very well right now, but I do think Kwanzaa will still get a lot of minutes this season. My opinion has not changed over the last 7 days. Ipswich are up against Aston Villa. Jacob Ramsey is still getting those starts, although we are still waiting for some consistent returns. He scored in Villa's Champions League return against Young Boys. He's only just about getting an hour a game at the moment in the Premier League, but Villa's fixtures are good enough to make him a worthwhile investment. Right back Roulette, though, continued against Wolves, with Bogard dropped this time, Konsa filling in at right back, and Diego Carlos playing at centre back. Carlos was at fault, though, for Wolves' goal, so it wouldn't surprise me if they now revert back to Bogard for this one. And I actually think this might be the week where Ian Maatsen gets a start at left back. He replaced Digne at half-time, with Villa looking to turn around that 1-0 deficit, but against a side like Ipswich, I think they can probably afford to have a more offensive-minded fullback in their starting 11, and that could be good news for Ian Maatsen. Manchester United ground out a 0-0 draw with Palace this week, but next week it is Spurs at Old Trafford. I would be amazed if Marcus Rashford doesn't start this one, but then I was amazed he didn't start against Palace. However, if you have him, hold him. Diego Dalot has long been a bit of a bonus points magnet in the game, and he got 3 more bonus points against Palace, so if he is available on the waivers, he's worth picking up. And United do look a little more resilient defensively this season, so if you do believe that's not a flash in the pan and could continue for a few weeks yet, maybe there is a Martinez or a De Ligt who can still join your squad via the waivers. And then on Monday, it is Bournemouth against Southampton. Bournemouth played Tavernier in the number 10 role again against Liverpool. He does look like he's going to be a regular in a very front-footed side this season. He is not a fashionable name, but he could be a decent pickup, particularly for a 1-week game against Southampton, a Southampton side who give up an awful lot of chances. And in fact, if you can get any Bournemouth attacking coverage for this week, it's probably worth doing. Semenyo and Evan Nielsen will be ideal, but are probably taken. However, someone like Luis Sinisterra could also be a good shout this week. Aaron Ramsdale has faced 20 shots in 2 of his first 3 games for the Saints so far. Tyler Dibbling also deserves a mention for his fantastic performance at the weekend. He is obviously a great prospect. He scored a great goal this weekend, and he may well turn out to be a solid pick for draft managers. But honestly, unless you're in a larger draft league, I just would not go there, purely because of the team he's playing in and not because of his talent. He can't do it all by himself, week in, week out, and even though he has looked really good in the games he's played, I just cannot see his impact lasting. So as I say, unless it's a big old draft league you're in, I would admire him from afar, but not waiver him in. So those are a few good waiver options for you ahead of Game Week 6, but there's also a few players I'd be looking to strike a trade for or use as a make-weight in a potential deal. So let's have a little bit of trade targets.
The FPL Draft Zone. Trade targets.
It is always worth going for proven Premier League talents who are at their lowest ebb in draft if you can get a good deal for them. And right now, there are some very good players who are woefully out of form, but who, if they rediscover that form, could turn out to be great signings for your draft team. Obviously, it's down to the deal you can do for these players, and you do not want to sacrifice too much to get them in, because none of them are in good moments right now. But as we've mentioned with the likes of Trippier and Estupiñán, the upside on these guys could be massive. So first up, we have Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus of West Ham, both of whom are struggling to make an impact right now this season. Kudus has 0 returns from 5 matches. Bowen actually has a goal and 2 assists already, but because West Ham have been so bad, that does seem to have gone unnoticed, really. Bowen would have been a second-round pick in most leagues. Kudus had a draft rank of 51, which I actually think is way too low, but there you go. Managers who own either player may now be open to a trade. They might be growing tired of the way West Ham are playing and the way they are not getting the best out of their assets. So if you think Lopetegui can turn things around at West Ham, and that is a big if in my opinion, or both of Kudus and Bowen can hit the heights they can reach if they perform to their best, it might be worth a tentative approach for either of them. Make an offer, start the negotiations, and see if you can strike a deal. A couple of others for you. Anthony Gordon, who is playing in a Newcastle side who look pretty terrible right now, despite winning 3 of their first 5 games. He's not done much this season either. 0 goals and assists up to this point. And next up for them, it's Manchester City. So that's going to be another tough game. And that means now might be the time to test the water for Gordon. Again, you'll have to give up something decent for him. But if you have a Jota, whose first team minutes are questionable now, or a Gibbs White, who's going to miss this week through suspension, I think you would be within your rights to make an offer. Maybe try to do a double deal and see if you can get any joy with Gordon. And then finally, Evan Nielsen of Bournemouth, who is yet to register for his new club, but who has an XGI of 2.3 from 4 matches, and he is yet to finish any of those matches. 1.9 of that 2.3 XGI is XG as well, so we could easily have had a couple of goals. It does seem like it's only going to be a matter of time before he does start scoring, and it's Southampton at home next, which seems like a perfect fixture for him to get off the mark. Then it's Leicester away. There are tough games after that, but given the lack of strikers in the game, if you can find a way to convince an Evan Nielsen owner to relinquish him, I would take him in my draft team all day long. He's only going to get better. He will start scoring soon. He has the potential to be a Bournemouth talisman, and I think he'd be a great trade if you can find the right players to switch him for. Right, that is it for this week. Game Week 6 starts on Saturday the 28th of September at 12:30pm GMT with a game between Newcastle and Manchester City. The deadline for your waivers is Friday the 27th of September at 11am GMT. We will be back next week, but in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the pod if you have not already, which would be criminal. Please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you listen to us there, or some positive, uplifting words on Spotify if that is your podcast platform of choice. You can also follow us on social media. We're on X and Instagram. Our handle on both is at FPL Draft Zone. But that is it for this week. Hopefully, Game Week 5 delivered for you. But if not, don't worry. There is always next week. Until next time, thanks for listening, and bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.